This is an original short story from Held Stories, a living archive of quiet human encounters. Here we try to create images of moments that are complete but not finished. Held Stories, Season 1, Episode 10. She finished the hike before the idea arrived. Leaves crunched under her hiking boots. Fall was always her favorite time to go backcountry hiking. Cool air, colors on the trees, and everyone returned from summer holidays, so she always had someone to go with. This time it was a small group of 5 from her hiking group. A fantastic opportunity to chat about what summer was like for everyone while they took to soaking in the change to winter. Making the day stretch on was what Marg was good at. It slowed time with how she approached other people in the dialogue. Today was no different. When someone perked up about their description of this past summer, Marg would ask the pointed question and hear the person's response drawn out. Everyone had their chance to deliver such colorful explanation of their summer exploits. Nobody brought their dogs this time around. There were rumors of bears still awake and wandering the paths around the mountain. Their trip took them past waterfalls and streams, through creeks and along a river until they reached the rope bridge leading over the water. Circumventing the mountain was no easy task. It was a 4-hour endeavor this group took to like seasoned professionals. Making the task more challenging were the fallen leaves and twigs. One misstep and the rolled ankle would make the walk back to their cars and hospital more challenging. Despite this crew having made many treks together, they know it was all in fun and slowed down when the going is challenging. Coulson spoke up and pointed out an eagle's nest about 20 meters above their heads. It was empty, but massive. Everyone pulled out their phones and cameras and took images for later use. Most explained their excursions to friends. People such as Marg always spun the image to entice those of her colleagues to join them on an excursion. Where there was an eagle's nest, there was sure to be a feeding ground. 10 minutes after the nest was behind them, they came upon the massive lake. Jack knew the fishing was good here, so he reminded everyone to bring their poles next time. The group laughed, knowing they already brought in about 40 to 50 pounds of gear with them already. There was no reason to believe a fishing pole would be something anyone would have in this hike. The path took them close to the tranquil lake. Marg paused and dragged her fingers through the water. Not as bitter cold as it would be during spring, but still cold enough she wouldn't dare take a swim at any point. She hustled to rejoin the group, who found a ledge over the lake and were taking more images of the surrounding foliage. They commented about how fall reflections off the water would be perfect for them to paint. Marg, having no artistic ability whatsoever, hesitated to join this conversation. Instead, she pretended to take more photos of the area she already had thousands of. Amelia spoke up and mentioned she heard something big rustling behind them. Everyone packed their cameras and phones and continued the hike, this time picking up the pace. Looking behind her, Marg pointed out a porcupine and the group relaxed. At least they can spare themselves from being dinner, this time. Leading the group today was Amanda. She was 10 years Marg's senior and had about 5 years over Marg's 15 with hiking. Marg's tenure was the reason they always loved her taking up the rear. Her keen senses always picked up on opportunities for photos and different forms of wildlife that would appear. This also doubled as a safety net. Like Amelia, Marg has often advised the group to pick up their pace, but for good reason. Anyone who decided it was a good idea to stop at this point was considered to have lost their minds. They were in a tight part of the path where everyone had to walk single file. On either side was thick, lush green foliage, blocking any hope for picking up on predators early. Not that Marg nor Amanda were worried. There isn't often anything big enough to worry about that would fit through this part of the bush. Still, the pace quickened and the conversation became livelier to deter any wildlife. Upon completing the narrow path, the group came upon a meadow. Tracks of what Coulson thought was a grizzly led in the opposite direction. The group decided they were probably 2 days old, so the crew continued with little to worry about. As they made their way through the meadow, Amelia stopped to take a sip of water. The group followed suit and pulled out their bottles, granola bars, and decided now was a good time for a snack. Everyone watched the surrounding trees for any movement just in case they weren't alone. Once their snacks were finished, Amanda called the group forward. Everyone made their way to the next stage of the path and carried on. Having made this trek so many times before, Marg knew they were only about 20 minutes from the parking lot. Coulson and Amelia, being new to the group, were completely unaware they made the long trek around the base of a mountain already. Many of them took to finishing their water bottles. Shrugging a look at each other, Coulson and Amelia followed suit. This would further advance Marg's joy as the new pair realized how close they were to the finish line. Marg cleared her throat, and Coulson and Amelia returned to the group, who were already on their way to the final stage of the hike. This stage took the group along a dried-up riverbed. During spring, when the snow melted, this river would be roaring and easily hide the sound of their conversation. But for now, in fall, nothing was to be heard or seen. Marg explained this to Coulson and Amelia, and they agreed to return in the spring to see the river. Marg explained how fish would transfer between the higher lakes to the lower lakes here through this river and those like it. After having completed the trip, everyone cheered and said their farewells. Amanda and Marg gave each other a hug and parted ways with a deep smile. Marg returned to her car, packed her bag in the trunk, and pulled out her phone. She texted her friend Ike, thinking, "What about psychedelic butterflies in your wedding cake? Colorful, edible, and easily positioned in different spots." Shortly thereafter, a thumbs up appeared on her message. Following this gesture was a message from Ike. "I was looking for something to detach the colors from the cake. That would be perfect." This artistic flair impressed Marg. She smiled and turned her car on, pulled out of the parking lot, and headed for home. The 3-hour drive wouldn't happen by itself, so she thought while there was light, she would get home as soon as possible. This was instead of meeting the group at a pit-stop coffee shop on the way back into town. The drive went by as uneventful as it normally does. One stop for gas and a pop was about the only thing Marg did to give her body a break from sitting all the time. She rolled into her parking lot at her condo complex just as the sun was reaching the horizon. Relieved to be home, and after climbing the stairs to her unit, Marg thought about the wedding cake. Is the wedding really 2 months away? Her friends were crazy enough to get married between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. After Thanksgiving, life toned down for her crew. It was the travel for the older folks Marg worried about. Her age group could easily make the flights they needed to in advance of the Sunday wedding, but the elders would insist on driving and grumble about leaving on Thanksgiving. After emptying her bag and gear, she sat up at her computer. There was an email from Ike with images of cakes with butterflies on them. Many had the butterflies spread onto the cake, which Ike pointed out wasn't what they discussed, but the colors were inspirational nonetheless. She replied to Ike, "Beautiful colors. I can't imagine marrying an artist, Ike, but I'm thrilled you found her. She will love these ideas." Texts came through from friends wanting to know if Marg was back from her hike and if she would like to join them at the pub tonight. Several declining statements from Marg. She relaxed on her recliner and opened the pop she bought at the gas station. Thoughts of the next day filled her mind. She wasn't ever sore after a hike like this, but she still took it easy. It wasn't every day the hike went off without a hitch. Then she remembered the eagle's nest. Butterflies for the cake and the shape of the nest with how the butterflies could attach to the cake. She texted Ike her thoughts on this engineering marvel, and another thumbs-up response received. Back to her pop and daydreams. Never had she constructed a work of art so well received by an artistic mind such as Ike. He worked in graphic design and knew little about graphic art without a computer, but he knows a good idea when it is presented. Making her way through more ideas, she realized her understanding of engineering conversations and nature would be an art form unto itself. She moved back to her computer, transferred her images of the day to a basic software program Ike had guided her through, and thought about assembling the imagery. She wondered if there would be something from these photos she could develop into an income stream. She loved her job, but didn't enjoy waking at 6 a.m. every weekday. She found new ways of constructing the images in different arrangements. Her mind focused. She drew upon the malleable dialogue she extends and an eye for connections in nature, and saved several attempts. Emailing Ike and Lisa, the happy couple to be wed, she asked if a selection of the images would pass for an art form. Immediately the responses were positive. A page from each of them explained what could be done to improve. Marg was determined and returned to the graphic design program to attempt further combinations. She had thousands of nature photos that could be used for this purpose, many from public areas. Finishing around 10 p.m., her stomach was growling something fierce. Moving to the kitchen to reheat last night's dinner, she sat at the kitchen table and pondered a new career. She looks at her list of images again. Tonight might be the night. This has been Held Stories. Held Stories is maintained as a living archive of created images of moments that are complete but not finished. Editions will be made available as they are prepared for those who wish to retain them and support their preservation. For those interested, please visit www.heldstories.org for more information.